Minnesota mug, and it's in the shape of the state of Minnesota, all right? And now, what we've been doing is that when a governor takes the time to come to the Minnesota State Fair and actually volunteer in the booth, as an appreciation of that time that they spent in the booth, we've been presenting them with a Minnesota mug. Governor Don Stolberg has one, Governor Terry Gorman has one, and now I'd like to present one to our immediate past governor, who's not only been there this year, he's been there at the fair many, many years, representing Rochester. So please thank Kevin Hamill. Now, I do have a quick story to tell, however. Okay, so the West St. Paul Club sets up the booth, and so we're there early in the fair, and these sell out very, very quickly. You've got to get there because it's a very limited edition. Normally there's only 250 of these available. So I was there about the second day of the fair, went into the State Fair gift store, and wanted to buy this because I knew Kevin was going to volunteer. And so I picked out they have a different one every year. So I picked it out and I was about to pay for it. And I noticed one sitting way, way back in the shelf. And I asked the sales clerk behind the counter, I said, what's the story on that one back there? And he said, no, he said, you don't want that one. That's an old one. I said, well, tell me about it. He said, he said, we were cleaning out here before the fair and we discovered this one buried in the back of our cabinet. And I said, well, is it cracked or is there something wrong with it? He said, no. He said, but it's a 2014. It's a 2014. Well, the 2014, a little bit bigger than the 2018 was. And I said, I think I'd be interested in the 2014. He said, no, you want the 2018 though, man? I said, no. I said, I'm interested in the 2014 if the price is right. So he kind of grinned. He said, yeah, I suppose I'd give you a discount on it. Then I said, well, do you have the gift box with it? And he said, no. I said, well, can you knock a little bit more off? And he said, okay, you drive a hard bargain. So we wrote the check, got the 2014. Now, the real reason I wanted the 2014 was the fact that, unbeknownst apparently to the clerk behind the counter, my parents were antique nuts, and they always told me, they said, if you have a chance to buy the first edition of anything, that is always the best way to go. Well, 2014, as you can see there, if we look in the bottom, what does it say?
First edition. First edition.
So number 92 of 250. So congratulations, you have a first edition. All right, real quickly, a project that I'm involved with, a lot of time involved with, that some of the Optimist clubs in the Twin Cities are also involved with. We'd love to have more Optimist clubs in Minnesota. Now, this has to be strictly for Minnesota Optimist clubs. It's called Minnesota Sings. Minnesota Sings. It's a competition between cities throughout Minnesota designed for 15 to 25-year-olds. And they compete for some wonderful prizes. Well, the way the program works is that every city that competes supposed to put on their own Sings event. So Rochester put on an event called Rochester Sings. The top two winners from Rochester Sings then go on to Minnesota Sings to represent Rochester, and a chance to win some great prizes. Well, there's a registration fee, all right, to participate in Minnesota Sings. Last year was $80, and a lot of those registration fees, Optimist clubs picked up. Okay. Now, the other part of the story is we get calls from kids around the state of Minnesota who say, I'd like to be in Minnesota Sings, but we don't have anybody in our town that's putting on a local Sings event, but we'd really like to participate. Well, what we ask them to do then is they have to send in audition tapes. Those audition tapes then go before a panel of judges, and the judges then decide whether it's the quality that we want at Minnesota Sings, okay? So once they do that, if they say, yep, you're in Minnesota Sings, then we have to find them a sponsor, okay? So once again, $80. Lots of times we'll go to a local Optimist club to say, hey, would you be willing to pay the $80? And however, there is something in it for the Optimist clubs too. So if the person you sponsor wins first, second, third, or fourth place, the sponsor also wins some money, okay? And in this case, the lady that won second place, her name was Melissa Tessavajorges, I'll probably pronounce that wrong, but she won second place. She was sponsored by the St. Paul Optimist Club this year, who paid $80, and in return for their investment of $80, I'm in the financial services business, we're giving St. Paul $750. You should get a picture for it. All right, so the only thing that would have been better if Melissa had won first place, Optimist Club would have won $1,000. But as second place winner, they won $750. So on behalf of Minnesota State, congratulations. And once again, if other Optimist clubs, this is strictly for Minnesota, if Optimist clubs in Minnesota would like to get involved, please contact me. And we are always looking for sponsors to sponsor kids around the state of Minnesota.
Thank you.
Congratulations to St. Paul again.
Thank you. Thank you.
And hopefully if you're a Minnesota club, you got the early incentive program. This is just for Minnesota clubs to sign up for the state fair. You got a chance to win some free admission tickets if you sign up. So please bring that back to your clubs. You have to pay the $125 cost. Has to be submitted to us, postmarked no later than December 31st of this year to qualify, and we'll do the drawing in January at the MCOC meeting. With that, thank you so very much. Thanks, Governor Martin.
Thank you, Chuck. Don't go away. Chuck, don't go away. So Kevin got a mug for volunteering for working at the state fair.
And you could get a mug for volunteering at the state fair.
Well, I was just going to say, could you just reserve one for me now and put me down?
Tell you what, I'll put you down. That'd be great.
Okay.
That'd be great.
Let's see you. Chuck, I'm not through with you yet. And Cole, why don't you come up here too? Chuck, Cole, I know you guys have put in years and years of service to the Minnesota State Fair project. What was it, 13 years you tried to get in?
It took 15 years to get in.
15 years to get in. Talk about,
to get in, and then this was the 11th year that we actually were there.
that is fantastic. I mean, talk about dedication. So we thought it was time we probably should give you a little award. And so we've got a plaque here with the DMM 100 logo on it. It says the DMM Unsung Hero Award to the Chuck Spavin family, Chuck, Kelly, and Cole, for their tireless commitment, initiative, effort, and time in spreading the Optimist message to thousands of prospective members at the Minnesota State Fair, 2008 to eternity, I guess. I do have the box that the plaque came in. Talk about commitment. You know, that's fantastic. You know, that we have optimists who step up and just work and work and work, and the results that they've had over the years has been phenomenal. So we can't thank you guys enough. Next, I'd like to call up Cheryl Bergstrom. Cheryl's got a couple of PDP or PGI awards that she would like to present.
Thank you. I'm the chair of the Personal Growth and Involvement Program, as well as the Professional Development Program, which we often call PDP. If you need brochures or revised passports, you can contact Jackie Moore at optimist.org. Today I'd like to present a couple of certificates. These could be considered first edition because it's the first time I have presented any PDP certificates. The first one, level 1, would go to Nicole Kringstead. She's not here today, but let's give her a round of applause. Give that for Grand Forks. That was for level 1. And the certificates have Optimist International certifies that the person has successfully completed whichever level. So whenever you complete a level of either PGI or PDP, send me an email and let me know, and I will send it on to Optimist International. The next one is for level 2, Greg Honnell. So send in your information to me, and you can get a certificate at the next Optimist meeting or convention. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. You do a fantastic job with that program, and that's something that we really all need to take a look at and enroll in, because it's very worthwhile. I've got a couple other things here. Remember at the first of the year, I said anybody that recruits a member between October 1st and today, their names would be put in a drawing for $25, $15, and $10. And Greg, how many do we have in that?
13.
13. So we're off to a good start. So maybe you would have
11.
11. Oh, we crossed Dennis off because he tried to.
No,
enter
no,
our
it
class.
There was one less than 12.
One less
One more
than
than 12.
One less than 12.
He's a CPA.
You know what CPA stands for? Could probably add.
Can't pass again.
Possibly.
Cut, paste, and assemble.
Okay, Greg, why don't you have Mark draw the first name for $25? Good, cold, hard cash.
Mark, what no?
Dave, Mark, no? Mary. Negajon? She's from,
I'll be present to win.
no, you don't. Yeah. Oh, I think, isn't she from the Lakeville or Prior Lake Savage, one of those two?
Let me look at it. Send her the money. I'll look at it.
Nararanjan, yeah, that's it.
Well, she will get the $25 as soon as we. Oh, are you from there?
Yes.
Oh, come on up and.
Give it to her. Yeah.
Cash, yeah.
Yeah, we'll give you the cash, but Greg will want you to sign a release form.
And send a picture if you give it to her.
So the
Video proof.
$15 goes to Don Salverda. He's the guy that occasionally brings in a new member.
Occasionally.
What, he's gotten 41 members now so far, or something like that?
Oh, 50 plus.
50 plus in the 2-year-old
and
club.
Jerry left, right?
Yeah.
Yes, they did.
And so anyone else from the St. Paul Club here?
Yeah, the president will say Paul Club.
Zach again?
Zach. If anybody wants to know what a 50 membership pin looks like, it's got a couple diamonds in it.
Ah. Hey, Zach, are you keeping track of all your mileage?
Oh, yeah.
Walking up and down?
Someone suggested I sit in the front.
It would sure save you a lot of expense. Okay, and the $10 winner is Jim Gasper from St. Cloud. Yeah. So thank all those members for bringing
25, 15, and 10.
and 10. So Tip gets the 10. So thank all those members who brought in a new member in the first 19 days. I think I actually brought in the first member for this year, and I took advantage of that, bring a former member in, who was a 2-time club president of ours who moved to Fargo a few years ago, and then she became wiser and moved back down to Sioux Falls. And I grabbed her the minute she lives in my apartment complex, so she was my first. Okay. I'm a little slow on the uptake. I've got 2 other awards presentations that I'd like to make now. I probably should wait later, but as long as
we have your attention.
Yeah, as long as you're still listening to me. We traditionally have, we would like to present our 2 Optimist International representatives with the special award that we do every year in the DMM, and that's we contribute $100 to the OI Foundation in your memory. In your honor.
You can do that too, but much later.
We'll do it in your honor first, and here's just a little thank you card, Mark.
Well, thank you.
And we appreciate everything you do.
Thank you.
And also my boss, Vice President Edie Harris, we will have $100. Thank you to the Canadian Optimist Foundation. It's just a small token of how much we appreciate you guys coming out and doing all that you do for us. Oh, that's the worst one list. I think now,
I'll get you back on track.
no, we're just a few minutes off schedule, but that's okay, because we're flexible now. We don't have to eat anymore. So I'd like to call Mark back, and he's going to talk to us a little bit about 100 ways to appreciate our members, and anything else he wants to do.
Once again,
Oh, you got your.
I have to turn it on.
I suppose I have to.
Once again, they gave me a list of 100 things I was supposed to tell you. I'm not going to do that. But I am going to talk, well, first of all, we saw a great example of how to appreciate your members just now when he gave Chuck and Cole that award for representing our district at the Minnesota State Fair. I think that's a good example and something that people should do. So thank you for that. But I'm going to start off today with if you'll remember my ramp, the first part, the R, which included recognition, shows how we value our members in our case. And so I want to show you a video that exemplifies how we validate and value, how you can validate and value.
I'm here to get validated.
You are awesome.
Excuse me?
You have an amazing face. You've got powerful features, man. Anyone ever tell you that?
No.
And listen, you look a little down. And it may seem like sometimes people don't understand you. But someday, man, someday, people are gonna see you for what you really are.
You really think so?
Absolutely. You are great.
Need a validation, please?
You are great, ma'am. You have amazing cheekbones.
Really?
Sir, yes. We have a situation. Where?
Oh my gosh. 6 months old.
What the hell's going on?
You've been through it. You know. You've had so much life experience that other people don't appreciate, but you know.
Bless you, dear.
They're not patronizing the shops. They're just coming to see him.
Oh, sir, you're in great shape. You work out?
Not for long.
I do, actually. A bit. Yeah, thanks.
Young man, we are running a business here, not a social club.
That is a fantastic suit. It really flatters you.
You think so?
You guys work so hard. You are the backbone that keeps this place running.
It always felt like no one really appreciated us.
Yeah, I mean, our jobs are so stressful, and it seems like most of the times people just don't see it.
No, what you do is so important.
You know, I bet the boss would love to meet you.
You are great. You provide hundreds of jobs, sustaining hundreds of families. That's huge.
That's so good to hear. Most times I feel like people don't recognize that. I'm just the big bad man on the hill.
Not at all. You give.
You know, I know some people who'd probably like to meet you.
Mr. President, no matter what people say about you, you have still got a great golf swing. God bless you. You do. You have a fantastic mustache. I bet Burt Reynolds and Tom Selleck look at you and get envious. I'm not kidding.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hugh Newman, a man who is changing the world with free parking and free compliments.
New leaf. A very big new leaf.
Your license is expired, sir.
That is why you're great at what you do. You are so thorough.
Really? You think so?
Hugh, what is your secret?
I just love to see people smile.
It seems there is no one Hugh Newman cannot make smile.
I have Russ Thomas out of the Gateway District to thank for finding that video. He presented it to my district, and I said, well, I've got to use that. But it's an example of what somebody said earlier about optimism being contagious. And this is a form of optimism, recognizing people's value. But what it comes down to in this case, in a lot of ways, is gratitude. And when we're grateful for the things that we have, that's a form of optimism. And the important thing about appreciation is it needs to be sincere. They were all actors, but the guy really seemed sincere about every compliment he made, and they were appropriate to the people he was making them to, even Mr. Hussein. Be honest and sincere when giving the appreciation, and of course the difference between appreciation and just flattery is appreciation is sincere. Okay? So now we want to put into practice what we just learned. I would like you to turn to each other around where you're sitting and give each other sincere appreciations for who they are and what they do for our organization.
You're so fast and light.
You did a wonderful job.
Yeah, that was great. I loved it. You do a great job with the website. Oh no, I'm working on it. Keep working. Well, like I said, when we redesigned it, I think it'll make it easier to manage. Actually, there's going to be more on it as we go here.
Oh no, we didn't have an area repository. That's true.
Yeah.
Which that could be a link to YouTube.
Yeah.
Link to Google Docs.
Right.
But now we have an email we can create.
Right.
Email.
Yeah.
This could be a place you can expand to Google Docs.
Right. The one thing I want to see if I can work out is the membership part of it, where you can sign in to get access to these other things, and we don't want everybody running into information. Yeah. So.
Okay. Oh, yeah, she
The
said
thing is, I'm trying to find all this stuff. There's no cost.
I hope that was enjoyable for you.
I should talk to Dave. We should consider looking at
It's fun to be, it's great to be appreciated, but it's also rewarding to be the one who gives thanks to other people. And that's why I consider appreciation an optimistic activity. That's something you could incorporate into an Optimist Club meeting. So earlier I just kind of slightly mentioned my real mission in life is to get our Optimist Clubs to be more optimistic. And so I talk about having at least some optimistic activity every meeting. It could be these Connect cards from the Harmony group. It could be going around the room and sharing gratitude, or it could be going around the room and sharing appreciation for each other. There's so many things you could do in an Optimist Club meeting that would bring optimism to the front, and not just wait till the end of the meeting where we do the creed. And people are looking at their watch going, oh, I gotta go somewhere, promise yourself, and feeling so strong. And we sometimes take that creed for granted, which is our greatest asset, as many people pointed out already today. So doing an activity like this brings the creed to life in our club. I recommend you do it at every club meeting. Some form of gratitude, which is being grateful for the past, mindfulness, which is mindful of the present. I mentioned one of the things, I'm going off track here, but this is my mission, so I'm just going to throw it in there. This is not part of my presentation. But one of the things I do, mindfulness can be a couple of things. It can be many things. In its most basic form, it's meditation, where you clear your mind of the chatter you are constantly bombarding yourself with. You're always talking to yourself and telling yourself things about what's going on around you, and you really sometimes are very hard on yourself, and you tell yourself the wrong things. Mindfulness is a way of emptying away all that chatter and just paying attention to your senses. Living life moment by moment by moment, as if it was the most important thing happening, without the chatter. But it can also be a couple things. Mindful intent. When we sat down to do our budget, I should save that for the budget. You could have mindful intent about how the decisions you make in your budget, and I'll talk about this again, impact the lives of you. Or when I wake up every morning, my alarm clock goes off, which happens to be this phone. And the first thing I do when that alarm clock goes off is I hit the snooze button. But then it rings again. I wish it would break sometime in between the first alarm and the snooze, but it doesn't. And when that second alarm goes off, before I get out of bed, I take a moment to think about my positive intent for the day. What am I going to do when I get out of bed this morning that's going to make a difference in people's lives? It's easy when I come to do something like this, because I immediately thought of you people being in this room and being inspired or energized by something I said. And I'll tell you in the back there, what you said you were going to do with your club to go back and talk about inclusion, that was my intent for the day. So you've made my day. And I do that every morning. So mindful intent can be, and you can do this in a club meeting, you can talk about your positive intent for the day, what you're going to do when you leave your club meeting. And then the third aspect of optimism that I like to see in every Optimist Club meeting is hope. Hope for the future. That was my line on the, you notice they didn't give me too many lines on that video I showed this morning because they were afraid. They just gave me one word, but because they were afraid I wouldn't remember my lines. But, and I actually got to make up that line. But the thing is, hope for the future is what we do as an optimist. That's what makes us optimists. You know, a lot of people say, oh, you're optimists, you think everything is great. Actually, no. We realize this world is not a perfect place, but what makes us optimists is we believe that we have the power to change it. That's called hope. We provide hope and positive vision for youth and for ourselves. And so doing those things, now I'm going to get back to the real presentation, which was about how to show appreciation. But I always like to get my little personal mission in there. It's not a personal mission. It should be the mission of our organization, I believe. Here are some ways that we put up there. And of course, they really did give me 100 ways to show appreciation. And I believe there's a handout that you could email to that same email address, leadership@optimus.org, and get that. But these are some ways that we recognize people. We talk to them in person. We can email them, but both email is not a very personal way of acknowledgement. There's public acknowledgement in a group like we just did for Chuck and Cole, and awards or certificates, same thing. You know, that's why we do some of those things. We like to recognize people in our organization for the work that they've done, and hopefully at the same time, people in the room are saying, "Oh, I wish I was getting that award." But there's one more powerful way to show appreciation than any other method. Anybody have an idea what it was? Saying thank you that's the personal kind of recognition I talked about. Well, while you were all chatting away or giving yourselves appreciation, I was reading a personal note written to me by Dave Martin. And the most powerful form of recognition is a handwritten note or card. This is the kind of thing people will save, they'll remember, and that's the way. And if you send it through the mail, they'll really be impressed because, yeah, there you go, and they're on sale in the back. $7, and you can use the most powerful method of appreciation in the world. And if you mail it, because people in the mail don't get personal notes anymore, all they get is bills and nowadays political mailers. So when they get this handwritten thing, they're like, "Wow, what's this?" And they open it first. And it's a very powerful way to recognize people. So I encourage you to do that on a regular basis, you know, especially if you're a club president. Now, one of the things I did as club president was I would start every meeting with an award for somebody in my club. In my district, and they used to do this in every district, and it doesn't look like you have a district pin this year. Is that, I have Terry's on from his year, but I don't know if you had one either. Yeah. A lot of districts have stopped giving pins, but when we used to do pins, I would buy a bunch of pins when I was club president, and I would start every meeting by giving out one of these pins and recognizing somebody for something they did, whether it's Kurt for doing the newsletter or Tim for doing the AV, you know, which I do appreciate both of you guys, and thanks for including me in your newsletters. But starting off a meeting with that, it's actually been scientifically proven to make your meetings more productive. There's a book called Broadcasting Happiness, written by a woman named Michelle Gielan. I encourage you to read it. It's got all kinds of information in it, but one of the things she talks about in this book called Broadcasting Happiness is that if you start meetings off with some kind of recognition, appreciation for something the group has done since the last time you got together, your meeting will be more productive, more ideas will be generated, and your company will be more successful. That's science. There's science behind that. So you could do that at every Optimus Club meeting.
Here's my governor's pin.
Oh, thank you. So now I have an official pin from last year. Still waiting on this year. Thank you. I'll write you a note later. What's that? Okay. So now, at this time, I do like to make my trainings interactive, as you may have noticed. I'd like you to just take a minute to talk amongst yourselves in the same groups you've been in before. We're going to take less time because I'm a little bit behind, but we got 4 minutes. Just talk about how you might bring appreciation into your club meetings. Just take 4 minutes to do that. Zach, did you have something? I asked, when I was president, I told you how I became president of the club that year and I wanted to bring members. One of the things I wanted to do was offer a free meal to any of our members who brought a guest. So if you were a member of the club, instead of you having to pay for your breakfast, if you brought a guest, both of your breakfasts would be free. My board of directors would not approve that. So I said, oh, forget that, I'm just going to pay anyway. So I still made the offer, I paid for people's breakfast, and it resulted in 10 new members that year. Wow. Anything else? Anybody want to share about appreciating members in our clubs? Okay. Zach, I'm glad you brought that up. I thought the slide, I didn't know where I had the slide. I knew I had it somewhere, but this is the truth. People will never forget how you made them feel, whether it's good or bad. And that's Maya Angelou. That's a quote from her. And However you make people feel, that's what they're going to remember about coming to your club or your personal interaction or anything like that. So Tim, I'm going to hit you with a curveball here because we're going to go to the next presentation.
Yep, no problem. I'm ready.
It's not a curveball. You knew it was happening. I'm going to get you on your toes.
You can't.
Because one of the things is we tend to, so this Optimus 100 conference is designed to give you some of the tools for you to go out and have a successful year. We want to do some of the inspirational stuff. It's called budgeting. And so one of the basic, there's 4 pillars that our president, Rebecca Butler-Mona, wanted us to convey. And one of them is our financial resources, as well as service. Do you know what they are? I got myself in a bind. Now I should have known what the 4 are before I started down this path. But that's the one. So, but one of the ones was finances. So we're just going to give you. We're not going to go too much into this because I know I already told you I'm not interested in being a secretary treasurer at all. Why am I using this? Give a past governor a mic and they'll never put it down. I threw myself off with that one. I'm sorry to tell you, I don't want to have anything to do with club finances or writing checks or anything like that, but it is important for everyone in your club to know about budgeting. And here's why. What do you think? Well, first of all, it is important based just on your functionality as a club that you have your finances in order. It's actually prescribed in the Optimus International bylaws. It also is important for you to keep adequate financial records for you to have records of all the money that you're spending and that it was approved properly. You also have to do fundraising or you're not going to be able to do anything. And then proper planning and management of your financial resources is essential to the success of a club. And that's not just on the shoulders of your secretary-treasurer. When we talk about making, the job of the secretary-treasurer is to write the checks, obviously, and to manage the finances and follow the budget that's prepared by the club. But it is a club process in creation of a budget. And now I'm going to tell you why. What is a budget? It's more than just income and expenses and having a balanced budget. What really is a budget? Guideline.
Roadmap.
A roadmap.
Planning tool.
A planning tool. All of those things are true. Now, what about a roadmap? What do we use a roadmap for?
How to get somewhere.
To get somewhere. We have a goal.
Goal, destination.
We have a destination. We have a goal for our club for the year. The budget is our way of identifying our priorities as a club. We decide these are the things we want to do this year. This is how much money it's going to cost. So to do that, we need to raise X amount of money to cover those costs. And so how are we going to do it? That's what a budget is. And as somebody said, it's a guide. It's not set in stone. You can adjust the budget due to circumstances or whatever. You might find a new project. Maybe Harmony came along and you found out you need a couple $100 to implement it for whatever reason. They're offering it for free, so it sounds great. But maybe there's some costs involved for a program that you didn't expect when you created the budget. Does that mean you have to wait till next year to do it? No, because the budget is a guide. You can change it, okay? So first we start with what are our needs and our wants. I wouldn't, it says needs versus wants. I mean, it's good to know what you actually have to do and what you don't, but you want to fund both. So needs, there are some financial obligations you have. There's dues to Optimus International. There's dues to your district. Is that correct? You pay district dues?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
There's, maybe fees for where you meet or meals or whatever. So you have actual things that you can't avoid spending money on. Maybe it's a filing fee for a tax form or whatever it is. So identifying what you have to do is important, and then identifying what you want to do. Yes, we want to sponsor a Little League team, or we want to have an oratorical contest, and we don't want the contestants to. And by the way, one of the things that Optimus International wants all of the oratorical contestants to do now is to attend in person the regional and international contest in St. Louis. Now, do we want the contestant to pay for that or their family? No. So we're asking the clubs and the districts to find the money to send your oratorical contest winner and a chaperone. Doesn't have to be the whole family, but the speaker and one person to go with them to St. Louis. So that would fall under the category of ones. Optimist International isn't ordering you to do that, but we would sure love to do it. And it's going to be a requirement that they have to be in attendance to win the regional and international awards. The reason being, they were found out too many districts were incapable of handling the technology to give the students a fair chance. Now, we did have a winner, an international winner, who was done electronically. So it's, some districts are up for the challenge, but some districts were not, and we felt it was a disservice to the youth. So we're asking everybody to be in attendance in St. Louis. Well, that's something you have to put in your budget. Whether it's in a club budget and say, we'll contribute $100 for the oratorical contest winner, or if the winner's from your club, I hope you put in more than $100. Or if it's the district putting it in their budget. Again, it's a planning tool. You're planning your year and you are deciding these are the things we want to accomplish. And financial management, of course, is you're fiscally responsible. You're not spending more money than you're bringing in. So how do you do a budget? You set goals. You find your projects and you assess what your costs might be to do these different things. Then you assess your revenues. We've been doing this fundraiser for X number of years. This is how much it raises. We can expect to do that. Or maybe we're going to add a fundraiser, or maybe we're going to do this. Well, even just doing that for an individual fundraiser, you have to decide, okay, how much money do we have to spend preparing for this fundraiser? And then how much is it going to return? And also, don't forget when your goals, we get caught up in just dealing with the youth projects. We want to do, oratorical contests, we want to do a fishing derby, we want to do all the different things that we do in our clubs. But don't forget, your club should also do a NOW program every year, New Optimist Welcome. It's a membership drive. It's actually an honor club requirement. Hopefully you've all seen the honor club tracking form by now. If not, your lieutenant governor should be visiting you soon to do that. And so you have some costs associated with the NOW program because you don't want your guests to have to pay for a meal or whatever. Now, there's so many varieties. I'm not going to get into what you have to do in a NOW program. You could do it at very low cost. You could do a potluck where everybody brings food, so there's no cost. There's a lot of ways you could do it, but that's part of your budget planning process. So you're planning your projects that you're doing for youth, but also plan your membership recruitments and maybe your district travel to come to a meeting and all kinds of things like that. All of that goes into your budget, and when you're ready, then you make a budget. So here's what I want you guys to do right now. Okay, no, this was part of what I was just talking about. It's hard, it's interesting process for somebody like me because somebody else makes my PowerPoint for me, so I have to remember what's in it. But this is what I was just talking about. So you might be talking about your international district programs you want to participate in. Your club meetings might have a cost associated with them, whether you have meals or not. So sometimes your meals are inclusive with your dues, and so you have to make sure you're calculating all that correctly. Whether you're doing any club fitness program activities to make your club stronger, your dues, and I did forget this one, so I'm glad I had the PowerPoint to remind me. Every club should be making a foundation contribution every year, so you want to put that in your budget. And then the support for club officers, mostly whether you're going to pay for their travel to district meetings and that kind of thing. So these are all things to take in consideration when you're making a budget. So now we start talking about what's your revenue, which is your dues. And your, the meals might be included. Yeah. You might have an oil rig, that's giving you income. I wish. Or you're going to have some other fundraising activities. Once you have those, you know your basic revenue, and you know what you want to accomplish, and what projects you're trying to do. Then you are ready to sit down and create a budget. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a short exercise in that. And I want you to, these are just some of the things that you want to keep in mind. I just throw those up there. But I want you to take 10 minutes right now at your individual table, or if you're getting tired of the same people over and over, you can move around. And I want you to create, and somebody write it down. We're not going to go too much into these, but I'll give you an hour to do this at least. And then you might still be sending emails back and forth afterwards to try and work out the details.
Depends on how much beer there is.
Yeah. The comment was, depends on how much beer there was at the meeting. Now, one of the things I started to say earlier, and I told you I would come back to this during the budget session, was I again, going to my optimism, bringing optimism into everything we do, when we sat down to do the budget the year I took back as president and wanted to have an optimistic year, I said when we sat down to do the budget, I said, let's start out by realizing that the decisions we're going to make right now are impacting the lives of children.
Mark, there's just way too much noise in this
Okay,
room.
just go ahead and sit down. We'll take care of it. I think she was referring to me. I know. I realized everybody was talking, so I wasn't really saying anything too important. I always wait for quiet before I say the important stuff, or I'll just stop and wait for the room to be quiet. So, would anybody like to share one of their budgets and the decision-making that went into creating it? Yes, back here. Hold on. We got one back here first.
All right, good.
You weren't fast enough.
I'm an introvert.
Yeah. It was, yeah.
Right here. What?
No, it was Andrew.
Well, one thing we always make sure to keep in the budget is new club building.
Ah, good. Thank you for doing that. Let's help you now.
That was quick. Here comes Mark. I'm ready. Kind of shy.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
We got our budget ready. We're going to spend $27,930 this year. We don't have any fundraisers. We don't have any income at all yet. We got a goal. We're optimistic. We can just put together kind of a sample budget. And one of these one they showed us that we had a miscellaneous to thank, just a token with the Optimist Creed to thank the speakers so that they can take optimism with them. You know, we had some more activities for child cancer, a camp that they raised money to sponsor, and those kind of things. We didn't do much.
Great. Well, thank you for mentioning the gifts for the speakers, because that's one I forgot to mention, but that's a meeting cost. Yeah, we very often give and it's a good idea, especially to give them something with the creed on it. So it's a great idea to have a gift for your speakers. And so that should be in your budget. It's a minor cost, but get it in there. Was there somebody over here you guys wanted to? I thought I heard somebody over here. Okay.
Our club has a relatively unique situation in that we do charitable gambling. And with charitable gambling, if there is a shortage, if there is a theft or something like that, that money cannot come out of the proceeds of charitable gambling. The club has to bear that cost. The most expensive one we had was nearly $10,000. So I was just talking to the new lieutenant governor for the zone, and I think we're gonna try and start treating that like an escrow account. Start budgeting every year, put money until we have $10,000 saved up. That way the club doesn't have to worry about if something happens, then all of a sudden we have no money for oratorical or anything like that.
Thank you so much, because that's why I had to do these good things. You remember the things I forgot. And what you're talking about, you usually will call a reserve account. Your district probably has a reserve account for, it's kind of like a rainy day, your rainy day fund. You know, at home, you would hopefully have a reserve account in your personal finances for when the roof leaks or you know, whatever disaster happens. So that's what you're preparing for there, is you're essentially creating a reserve account, and usually you won't touch those funds except under emergency circumstances. And every club should have some kind of reserve fund. I would recommend it.
How many clubs still reserve money to come to these conventions or meetings? Do they have a budget? Is that still a thing that's happening?
Well, in this district especially, with the distances you travel, you really need to do that. So I'm glad to see so many hands go up. This is important stuff, And it's not okay for just the same old people to come every time, and people in the club to say, oh, Joanne's going, she'll tell us what happens, because Joanne goes back to her club, and she doesn't tell them anything, except the room was too noisy when Mark was trying to talk. And she didn't even hear that, so we were getting away scot-free. But the thing is, it's a good investment by your club in your leadership. It shouldn't just be, the president should always go, but club members with no positions in particular should always go. Especially at Savannah Town. I was glad to see some people from Brookings come, and that's what should at minimum happen. When the quarterly is in your town, your whole club should show up. You know, I understand it's a Saturday, and some people have things they like to do on Saturdays that don't include district meetings, but I think they'll get enough out of it by coming here. It will be investment in the future of your club. Even if you pay, in my club, we used to pay everybody's registration fee for the district meetings. In the old days when I was president, the first time in 1992-93, they gave me $100 a night for the hotel room, and the hotel room was, in those days, was like, well, it's like here. You guys are paying like $79. That's what we used to pay 20 years ago in California. Now the cheapest we can get is like $120. So it's crazy out there. I might have to move out here. You have good beef anyway. I keep telling people I come out here for the beef. The ice cream's good, but the beef is even better in the Midwest.
A heck of a commute, though, wouldn't it?
Yeah. But anyway, these are the kinds of things you want to think about to keep your club healthy. I'm glad you thought about the reserve fund, because that's a good one for the future financial health of your club. We had a situation in my club where the secretary treasurer, this is what I thought you were going to say when you said you had no fundraisers planned. I thought you were going to have somebody go up to the casino with $27,000 and try and generate some funds that way.
Well, we're just going to sponsor some speakers.
Yeah.
So you can do like St. Paul does.
Yeah. But we had a guy in our club who was taking money, small amounts, and going up to a casino and gambling, and those small amounts added up to a big number before we caught him. So it's important to keep track of your finances. And we wouldn't have caught this guy in my own club if one of our members, who then took over as secretary treasurer, hadn't just kept, he wasn't doing his monthly, and get your monthly reports. So that's be the last thing I say on budget. I'm still got 3 more minutes to keep you on time. But make sure at your, how many clubs do have board meetings less than once a month? Good. You should have a board meeting at least once a month, and at each board meeting, you should have a financial report from your secretary and treasurer. Well, we kept having this guy in my club who was gambling away our money. He'd show up at the board meeting, oh, I didn't have time to do it, sorry, I didn't get it done. But we liked this guy. He was doing all the projects and stuff. He seemed like a great optimist. So, but Barry, another guy in my club, kept saying, we need to see these reports. We need to see these reports. And we didn't get them for about 4 or 5 months. He finally went to the bank. Now, the bank wouldn't let him do it without board of directors approval. So he came back to the board and asked the board to approve it. He went back to the bank and went through all the statements for like 6 months and found all this money missing. And so it's important not only to create a budget, but to watch it through the year and have those financial reports. There's nothing more important to your club than a good secretary and treasurer. And I'll leave you on this note. One of the books, Learned Optimism by Martin Seligman, that I read that put me on this whole optimism track is, it says, who would you rather have flying your plane? Optimist or the pessimist? Because the optimist is sitting there going, oh yeah, we got enough fuel to make it, we'll be fine. and the pessimist is going, well, we should calculate this out. You want your pessimist running your books. Your pessimist, you need a pessimist in your club to be your secretary treasurer, because they'll give you accurate information. They're realistic. There's nothing wrong with being a pessimist, but we also have to keep them in check attitude-wise. But definitely make sure you got somebody in your secretary treasurer position who's going to be realistic and keep a track of things for you. I really have enjoyed being here this weekend. I will be happy to give my card to anybody who wants. You can email me. I can send you any of these PowerPoints that you've seen. Tim's already put them up on the web for you, including the hidden slides. You go to in PowerPoint, go to slideshow and click on unhide slides for the ones I hit that you didn't get to see. really, I wish the best for you in our 100th centennial year. I hope you have a very successful year.